The implementation of sustainability into our organizations. The other week, we looked at what sustainable procurement is, why it's important. Sam has also shared with you why it's important, why it's a new trend. Every country, every business is now embracing sustainability. But it looks at the three pillars: the economic, the social, and the environmental pillar, where the economic pillar looks at things like life cycle costing, working within our agreed budgets, making profits. The environmental pillar looks at the activities we do at procurement. How do they impact on the environment? The inputs we use, the things we buy for our manufacturing, for our day-to-day usage, how do they impact on the environment? And social pillar looks at how we give back to society, things like corporate social responsibility, gender equality. So, to incorporate sustainability into our organizations, it all starts with development of a policy and a strategy. There is no way you can incorporate a new strategy, a new idea in an organization without having a strategy for it. We have studied strategy in procurement, and we know strategy is a long-term direction, a long-term objective to get you to a certain area. So sit down and develop a sustainability strategy. Top management works with procurement, with the supply chain department to develop this strategy that is going to be implemented. Inform all stakeholders in the organizations. It's a top-down approach from the top to the bottom. The business units, the functional units, the day-to-day units, operational units, bring them on board with this strategy, communicate it to them so that they can buy into this strategy. Very, very important. It will show you which direction you want to head to as an organization. We always insist that this strategy should be very clearly written, which shows what you value, what your missions are. And in this case, what do you value? We value environmental management, we value gender sensitivity, we value working within our budgets, we value buying when there is a need, not when there is a want. And these should all be clearly spelled out in our strategy, the long-term plan for the organization. After we have developed a strategy, we have to develop a policy which enforces the strategy. The policy shows how the strategy is going to be implemented. Okay? It sends a clear message to the different stakeholders how it is going to be implemented. It will tell you why it is important to have sustainability and why we are going to do this. This statement is written and handed to every department, operations department, finance department, human resource department, engineering department, procurement department. They have this policy which is clearly written, and that's why we call it a statement of intent. This is what we intend to do. And so they are aware what the organization is going to do. Why are we interested in the policy? To help us implement this agenda of sustainability. This policy will demonstrate that the organization, for example, Benjamin Uganda Limited, is committed to embracing sustainability. It will show that Karen Uganda Limited wants to address sustainability issues throughout the supply chain network, upstream and downstream. You remember what we studied in strategy? Upstream and downstream. All these should not be forgotten. It will show that we are ready to comply with all legislations to do with sustainability, which have been put by the powers that be. These regulations or regulations may be by government. For example, if it is environmental standards set by NEMA, National Environmental Management Authority, are we adhering to them? If they have been set by KCCA and we're a company in Kampala, based in Kampala, are we adhering to them to do with disposal, to do with pollution of things in the air or noise pollution? It's about the Kavera standards, are we adhering to them? We also, in this policy, it's very important to communicate the role of procurement. That's one of the courseworks I gave you. What's the role of procurement in ensuring sustainability? How is procurement investing in innovation with its suppliers? Has it brought its suppliers on board? Is it educating the suppliers? What about corporate social responsibility? This policy clearly shows what corporate social responsibility initiatives the organization is going to take up to ensure sustainability. When we have developed a strategy and we have developed a policy, we need to look into our environment. Have you done business environment, ladies and gentlemen, or not yet? Benjamin, Humphrey, and Karen, have you studied business environment?
Yeah, we have
Yes, we
studied.
did.
So you are aware that in the business environment, there are very many stakeholders. And in this case, if you're looking at sustainability, you're looking at very many stakeholders, upstream and downstream. You have your suppliers, you have the regulators, you have your employees, you have your shareholders, you have the media out there, government, all these are stakeholders. Have you got their commitment to work with you to ensure sustainability? Bringing them on board so that there is no resistance to what? Embracing this new strategy. And that is why it is very important to engage your stakeholders and get their commitment. But in engaging them, it is very important that we have a clear definition of sustainability. Beginning of this lecture, I asked all of you, the two of you, what do you understand by sustainability, this course and what? Each one had their own definition, their own understanding. And this is exactly what we're saying. Let's have a common understanding by everyone that we all agree that sustainability is about managing the three pillars, the people, profit, and planet, or environment, economy, and society. It's about future use, protecting the future generation because they need to be protected. And it's about life cycle planning and costing. If we can have this clear definition and it is understood by everyone, then stakeholders can easily come on what? Board. Let's create a business case for sustainability. What do we mean by a business case? Showing that if Humphrey, Karen, and Benjamin embrace sustainability, it is going to be good for their business. They are going to make profits. Their image is going to improve and means they're going to become competitive. So can we show a business case for sustainability? Let's also, in gaining commitment, we need to show trends and issues that have come up. For example, benchmark with countries and companies that have embraced sustainability and how it is working for their business very well. Can we do this? This will bring all stakeholders on board because we are trying to be persuasive to engage them. That is why stakeholder commitment is very, very important. Now, we have another author called Blackburn in 2007. He talks about gaining commitment through a policy, commitment of this stakeholder through to the policy. And he fronts several ways that this may be done through communication. communication about how the farm is performing, the activities, the policies. Communication is very important because it brings people on board. Communication is very important because it sensitizes people. Sensitizing is very important to show you the benefits of doing something. Now, last week, there was a headline in the papers. A man in northern Uganda killed his wife because he found out she was using family planning pills. Is that a death sentence? Does this man know what family planning pills do? Would that warrant you killing your wife? Reason, there has never been sensitization maybe to this man what family planning is. He has never been communicated to and brought on board to appreciate maybe family planning. And this is where we're talking about communication being very important. You can gain commitment by giving procurement to minorities. Earlier on, I talked about giving procurement to maybe gender diversity, diverse groups like the youth, the women. Giving business to a woman, you're giving business to a family. It's assumed in Africa that when you give money, business to a man, the profits is going to spend them maybe enjoying life with other friends and all that, yet a woman is going to spend that money on her family. You educate a woman, you educate a nation. The British Parliament decided to give most of its procurements to women and minority groups. And this falls under the social pillar. We also need to incorporate sustainability concerns in our procurement decisions. For example, we do not buy looking at lowest price. When we are buying, can we have sustainable specifications? We all know what a specification is. Specification is a statement of requirement, a detailed description of an item. When we're specifying what we want to buy from our suppliers, can we incorporate sustainability there? And we shall look at how to do that in our next lecture, most probably. We also need to work with suppliers, early supplier involvement. That's upstream, but even downstream with the different distributors. Talk to them about sustainability, bring them on board. In so doing, we shall be able to gain their commitment and they work with us. On top of this, we need to look at our vision when we're developing our strategy. What was our vision? Do we need to realign our vision to incorporate sustainability? I talked about having a clear definition of sustainability and presenting a business case for sustainability. Let's have examples of how sustainability has helped other companies, showing the challenges and opportunities, the SWOT analysis of sustainability. Can we create a SWOT analysis of sustainability for these stakeholders to see the strengths, the opportunities, vis-a-vis the threats and weaknesses? And then they'll come on board. This is very, very, very important for us as an organization. So you as procurement, you're in better position to identify these trends. Look at other organizations, how they are doing. One of these days, I'm going to have a presentation with the main campus, the degree group, on one of the things of sustainability, like life cycle costing. And I'll send you the link also so that you come on board and listen. If it's only 3 of you, well and good. If others are not interested, but by the time I ask you to join a degree class to listen in on something, then I am very sure that what I'm talking about is going to be very, very beneficial for all of us. And that lecture will be showing some of the trends in Uganda of sustainability, so that we can use these as benchmarking. So this is one of the ways of implementing. sustainability in an organization which has not been doing it. Bring in something new, develop a strategy. Out of the strategy, have a policy, gain commitment of all the different stakeholders, communicate to them, show them examples of how this has been done in other areas. Before I continue to the next step of the actual implementation, do we have any questions? Humphrey, Benjamin, and Karen, do we have any questions?
No,
Benjamin, any question?
no, I do not have any.
And Karen? Karen, are you there?
No question.
All right, let's look at the actual implementation stage now. Implementation. Now, authors have come up with different structures, different processes that need to be gone through as organizations in implementing sustainability. At the end of this course today, I am going to give you a coursework for only the three of you, not the others, to do for me and send me next week on Wednesday before this lecture. Okay? We start with actual implement. Yes. We start with communicating our strategic plan that we talked about earlier on. So you can see it's similar to the earlier process to the different stakeholders. Obtain commitments, which we talked about. Develop a policy, which we talked about. Now, what has been added on here is having targets to show that objectives, that you're moving from point A to point B. Having a leader to carry out that responsibility, sustainability leader. Changing structures whereby you have sustainability incorporated in the organizational structure. Because you may find some organizations don't have that structure in the chart, organizational chart. But of course, like any other strategy, implementing a strategy needs resources. That means you need to resource this sustainability strategy. You need to train your workers. Remember, we're looking at very many stakeholders. But we need to train them to know what sustainability is, how it is implemented, how it is done. Bringing them on board. That is very, very important. And finally, monitoring and evaluating. So how do we communicate to these stakeholders? Stakeholders are so many. We have internal and external stakeholders. We talked about that earlier on. Even the third parties like governments, the NGO sector. How do we communicate? Are you going to call conferences? Are you going to have advertisements in the papers? How would you communicate to these people to bring them on board? There are so many ways to communicate. You can have newsletters, conferences, management review meetings, team meetings, advertising, press releases. You can even have short YouTube videos, social media, social marketing. All those are ways of communicating. You've seen how MTN does its adverts, saying thank you, thank you, thank you. Those are ways of communicating to different stakeholders. And in this new era, we also need to adopt some of these social marketing communication methods, which have a direct message to the stakeholders. We need to set targets. What are our targets as organizations? If I say Benjamin, Karen, and Humphrey, today we'll go into implementation of sustainability. It's not going to happen in one day that I'm baptizing you. You are now, I hereby baptize you sustainability in the name of ABCD. No. It's a gradual process. It takes time. It's not going to happen like a chameleon changing color from green to black. That means we need to set targets, which targets are smart. If embracing sustainability means moving from Kampala to Mbarara, the first stage should be moving from Kampala to maybe Natete. That's the first target. Then you move from Natete to Mpigi gradually. In the first year, Kampala to Natete. Second year, Kampala to Mpigi. And you give yourself maybe a target of 5 years. But these objectives and targets need to be smart. And we mean by being specific. For example, you may be specific saying that you want all your suppliers to have a corporate social responsibility policy. So corporate social responsibility is about giving back to society. If you're making business, most of your businesses, you're getting it from society, but how are you giving back to society? That's being specific. These objectives need to be measurable. Measurable how? If you're going to cut down on items that are not biodegradable, say now I'm going to cut down on non-biodegradable materials by maybe 50%. Non-biodegradable material are things like caveras and plastics because they do not what? Rot. They need to be agreed upon. Remember we talked about having different stakeholders? These stakeholders, once they don't agree with what you are suggesting to them, there's going to be resistance to change. And you do not want to meet resistance because you want them to buy into what you are trying to sell to them. Needs to be realistic, like I said. Let's not say you're going to move from Kampala to Mbarara in 1 second. No. Have stages. Divide your plan of action in stages. And also, it needs to be time-based, like we said, maybe a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. This is very, very important for us when we're embracing and implementing sustainability. We need an authority, a responsible person to embrace sustainability. For example, if this was my company, DPLM 2, semester 2, I would not opt for any of the other 6 people or 7 to be a leader here. I would look at Benjamin and Humphrey and Karen. Why? First of all, they have made an effort to always attend. They are always available. They have an idea of what I'm talking about. So how do I go and get someone who has never attended anything here to even be responsible for sustainability? What will they, how are they going to change others when they can't even change themselves? And that is why we said that you need to change structures and put a section for sustainability in the organization structure, whereby the leader will be in charge of developing a strategy, developing a policy, training the whole organization, bringing on board the cleaners, the ones in operations, even top management to educate them, because this leader has wide knowledge. He has studied maybe sustainable supply chain management. And he knows how he can convince all these others to come on board. That is why a leader is very important. And we refer to that leader as a sustainability champion, who is going to have the responsibility of bringing all these other stakeholders we see here on board. He may be the procurement person, depending on the organization. It's very, very important to have that leader saying that responsibility, that sustainability champion. Are we together, good people? Are we on the same page before I continue? Any questions so far? Benjamin, Karen? Are we together? Yes, please.
Yes, what to do?
Any question before I continue?
No.
Okay. Then, after we have communicated, we have set targets. Remember, we said earlier on, we develop a strategy, we develop a policy, we obtain commitment, bring these people on board, we communicate to the different stakeholders, we set targets and objectives that are smart, specific, measurable, realistic, with a timeline. Now we have got a leader. Benjamin is our leader, sustainability champion. What next? Benjamin is going to go and train the different people in our organization about sustainability. He's the guru on sustainability. He's going to go and train them, all the functions from top to bottom. Now, this is a process which is going to be ongoing. It's going to take time. You have a training session you're going to develop for top management, for middle management, and for operational management. And in the process of training, also you reward people who are embracing sustainability. This is our best sustainability planner for the year, this and this. In so doing, you'll find that in the organization, you have even put waste bins, whereby now the whole organization knows that no throwing, no littering, no walking on the grass. When we have dustbins in the organization, we have dustbins for those which are being recycled, those which are biodegradable, like papers, put them in this dustbin. Those which are not biodegradable, like Kavera, you dispose them here. Those are which are recyclable, dispose here. If people know that in the organization, train them, develop them on all that. That's the training we are talking about. When you're training, what matters most when you're training is that the objectives we set earlier on need to be relevant. If they are relevant to our scenario, for example, in Uganda, then people will look at that as an elephant project. And we need to focus on the vital few, because if you're looking at procurement and you're talking about sustainability, incorporating sustainability in the specifications, how many items are you procuring? You may find the organization buys over 100 different supplies. Now, you'll find that you may have to focus on the vital few. And how do you identify the vital few? You may use the chronological matrix. I'm very sure you're aware of the chronological matrix, which looks at the strategic goods, the leverage, bottleneck, and the non-essential goods. Those 4 quadrants. And maybe you decide to focus on the strategic item. You may use the 80-20 rule or the ABC analysis, where you focus on the A items. In this case, for the beginning, those vital few. The objectives that we set need to be understood by everyone. That's why we specify training to ensure that they are understood by all participants. Again, communication comes back. A reminder that without communication, then we are wasting our time. Okay? We talked about targets being realistic. The SMART issue comes back. Then reviewing is very important. Go back and see whether we are achieving what we set out to do. Review, which takes us to the next slide of ongoing management and reviewing. Ongoing management and reviewing is about evaluation and monitoring, measuring progress. Remember, we have set objectives. How far have we gone in achieving those objectives? Are we making headway or aren't we making any headway? What is the way forward? If we're not making headway, then we have to come back and look at our strategy and change it, because it means our strategy is not working. Come up with a new strategy in this case. Look at our policy. Maybe the problem is with our policy. Maybe we didn't communicate very well. We didn't sensitize the people. Let's look at the stakeholders again. That is why ongoing management and review is very, very important. Now, Lyson and Farrington, I'm very sure you know all these people, have also come up with their framework for implementation of sustainability. And as you can see, it is not different from what we have just been talking about. If you look at this end here, the left end of this table, it clearly states what we have been talking about for the last 40, 50 minutes. Communication, obtaining commitment, setting targets, changing structures, resources, training, and so what can we say here? That it seems that there is an agreed framework that has been set on how we can implement sustainability in our organizations. Finally, there is something called the Sustainable Procurement Task Force that has been set up by the UK. It was set up by the UK ages ago, years ago, to help them implement sustainability. In UK, it was benchmarked on by Australia, European Union, and it looks at 5 levels. First level is foundation, level 2 is embedded, level 3 is practice, level 4 is enhanced, and level 5 is lead. Now, I'm going to give you an assignment. Go and read this framework, the SPTF Task Force Framework, Sustainable Procurement Task Force Framework of the UK, of Great Britain. Next week, we're going to have a test regarding that framework. So, this winds up what we were supposed to discuss today. Any questions from you people before I give out the coursework for today?